Greetings, wise acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to our infinite archives. Order 66 definitely changed the galaxy forever, being the very incident that completely wiped the Jedi from the face of existence. Only a handful of Jedi actually survived, but this purge effectively put an end to the Jedi's existence for a substantial period of time. For almost 30 years, the Jedi were basically non-existent, with only Luke soon rising up to bring the Jedi back to prominence. However, what many acolytes of the Force do not know is that Order 66 is actually the second Jedi purge to have plagued the Order, and is not the only time that the Jedi were nearly wiped from the pages of history. For those of you who are familiar with the story of Knights of the Old Republic 2, then you will know of what exactly we are speaking of now. For this tale, we will have to travel back many thousands of years and revisit one of the most deadly Sith Lords to have ever blighted the galaxy. That Sith Lord was Darth Nihilus. This was an entity that forever left his mark on the galaxy during his reign of terror, as he inexplicably changed both the galaxy and the Jedi Order for generations to come. In one of his most terrifying acts, he brought about the first Jedi Purge, and had it not been for the efforts of Mitra Surik, then Nihilus would have surely succeeded in his diabolical plan. It all begins in the year 3954 BBY. A mysterious force has emerged, but is still remaining in the shadow. This new sinister force would be the Sith Triumvirate, consisting of Darth Nihilus, Traya, and Darth Sion. The three combined Sith Lords made a daring move to do what no other Sith had planned to do in the past, that being completely destroy the Jedi. Their plan was immaculate, but so very simple at the same time. They stayed completely in the shadows and just began to cause stirs on Jedi-controlled planets. Various conflicts that all started popping up one after the other, much like in the same way that Sidious used the Clone Wars to spread all of the Jedi very thin. The three Sith Lords did the exact same thing. However, they did not do this openly through a separatist movement, but rather caused terrorist attacks on random insurgencies. The Jedi naturally went out to quell all of these conflicts and do their job as peacekeepers of the galaxy, but not all went well. It started slowly, a Jedi missing here, and a Jedi found dead there. But then, one after the other, entire squadrons and groups of Jedi were going missing and turning up dead. Nothing but their lifeless husks left behind. It soon came to the attention of the Masters that they were being systematically hunted and obliterated. The Jedi did their best to mount defenses and to use various Jedi watchmen that stood guard in the galaxy, but chaos and fear began to spread within the Jedi themselves, as they were all beginning to think that it was an inside job and that there was a traitor amongst them. Distrust and miscommunication was rampant, and soon many Jedi, along with important Jedi watchmen, began to fall away from the Order, with these Jedi choosing to renounce the Order and their affiliations with it, and they were never heard from again. Entire Jedi gatherings began to vanish, leaving behind a strange disturbance in the Force that only a few of the council members could recognize. It was a slow and excruciating process, not quick and efficient like Order 66 was, but this slower method of extermination was having adverse effects. The Jedi were afraid. This was the kind of power that no Sith could buy, the Jedi's actual fear. They had no idea who was behind all of this, and were genuinely terrified for their lives, so much so that they were running away from their duties and their posts. Behind the scenes, it was in fact Darth Nihilus who was destroying them. He left absolutely no survivors when he engaged the Jedi with Sion. Right when the Sith swooped down to kill them, Nihilus would use his infamous Force Drain ability and siphon the very life energy and Force energy from the Jedi. And as we all know, the more he fed, the more his hunger grew. It was getting to the point where he could feed on entire groups of Jedi, and then entire temples, so on and so forth, until his hunger was growing beyond the point of control. The Jedi needed to do something quickly, which was when a Jedi Master and historian named Atris came up with a plan to stop Nihilus. Atris summoned some of the remaining prominent Jedi Masters to an enclave for a secret meeting on the planet of Katar. Her summons was discreetly to discuss how to address this rising threat that was about to overtake their order. However, what the Jedi Masters didn't know was that this summons was a farce. Master Atris had deceived and betrayed her brethren for the sake of a foolhardy plan. She had allowed the information of this so-called secret meeting to be leaked into the galaxy in hopes that it would draw out whoever was hunting them. Her plan was genius, and it did indeed work, but not exactly how I'm sure Atris would have desired the outcome to be. The information reached the ears of Nihilus himself, and he took his ship over to the world of Katar. Had Atris maybe made this plan happen with the involvement of her Jedi peers, then they could have set up an expertly made trap for the Sith. But no, her short-sightedness cost the Order far more than she could have ever realized. Darth Nihilus approached Qatar and absolutely laid waste to it. Using his powers, he drained the surface of Qatar of all of its life, effectively wiping out every living thing on it besides only 2 people, Master Atris, who had escaped, and another Jedi that Nihilus had spared to use as his Sith apprentice. All other Jedi Masters had been destroyed. Any lasting Jedi, including the remainder of the Jedi Council, heard about this and immediately went into exile in fear. They hoped that in their silence, the perpetrator would become confident in victory and reveal themselves. Of course though, Nihilus instead set up his Sith base on Onderon with hopes of raising an army, but was soon thwarted by Mitra Surik. I like to think when Sidious was planning out the Second Great Jedi Purge, he studied all of these times in the past that the Sith got so close to wiping out the Jedi and yet failed. Of course, the first purge was the closest ever, so naturally, Sidious would see exactly what went wrong there and attempt to improve upon it. Sidious knew he certainly didn't have any time or power to destroy groups of Jedi from the shadows, one after another like Nihilus did, but he made excellent use of Nihilus's divide and conquer method by spreading the Jedi thin and luring them away from their precious temple. Meanwhile, through the use of propaganda and deception with the clone army, he was able to do it all in one fell swoop, something that even Nihilus was unable to do. But Sidious also seemed to learn from Nihilus's mistakes of not making sure to tie up loose ends. Nihilus neglected to pursue the Jedi who went into hiding, but Sidious did not. Through the use of Vader and the Inquisitors, he ensured that no Jedi would be left alive. Following the first Great Jedi Purge, only about 100 Jedi were left, but following the second, less than 20 or so Jedi remained in the entirety of the galaxy. However, there is some props that we need to give to Nihilus for this simple fact. Sidious's revenge took almost 30 years of deep planning, scheming, and planting. Sidious had to garden his plan like a tree before it would produce the fruit of his revenge. Nihilus, on the other hand, completely eschewed the use of an army or all plotting whatsoever, as the group of Sith set up all those conflicts to lure the Jedi away, sure, but not by soldiers, but by their own sheer power did Nihilus wipe out the Jedi Order. He took them out systematically and actually sent them running. Remember, this was during the Old Republic era, so the Jedi were still backed by the Republic itself. In Sidious's time, he used the whole Republic to turn against the Jedi, but Nihilus simply used his own powers. And it wasn't like Nihilus had an entire fleet of ships ready either. He used a single vessel. In the devastation of Malachor 5, there was left many ships on the planet's surface after the activation of the mass shadow generator. Nihilus resurrected and commandeered one of these battlecruisers, known as the Ravager, an appropriate name. The ship, though, was barely functioning and was certainly not spaceworthy, but by his sheer strength in the Force and will alone, Nihilus used the Force to keep it together and keep it functioning. The Ravager floats through space like a specter, piloted by a zombified crew of Force slaves that Nihilus even feeds off of occasionally. It wasn't through military might that he achieved his goals, or even a shiny full fleet of powerful weapons, though the Ravager was actually quite powerful in a fight. Rather, it was just unbridled power of Nihilus himself. The Ravager was less of a warship and more of a way for Nihilus to ferry himself around in order to feed off of entire planets. In my opinion, Nihilus is one of the most terrifying Sith Lords to ever grace the pages of Star Wars lore, as he is like a ghost or a demon story come to life. A man in a black cloak who pilots a ghost ship and feeds on the lives of people and entire planets. It was no wonder that he managed to achieve the possibilities that he did. But my friends, we would love to hear what your thoughts are concerning Nihilus and his crazy feats of power. Among some, there is a big debate as to whether Nihilus deserved to be as feared and respected as he truly is. But what is your opinion? But my friends, what do you think? Do you believe that he is overrated? Or do you think him single-handedly pulling off an entire Jedi purge makes him worthy of such praise? Please let us know your thoughts down below. And as always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I hope to see you soon.